well. I think that anybody who's doing something that's working really well is applying these principles, of course. I think it's most important that actually really everybody really has a peacefulness within themselves, But it's amazing that if, it's sort of really what's said that's binding or more in our totality, but that certainly issues people are having within their personal life, that's all to do with grief and loss. And it's not easy necessarily for those people to people to get through that, But it's amazing to me that electrics, strong electric force, and people testing strong kinesiologically. Have you? I think our listeners can have heard of this, perhaps. Kinesiological testing, but that as something really strengthens your electrics, people test strong, as a muscle, or otherwise they sort of test weak, And it's interesting that strong really is more sort of rebellion, and giving. Fully more, I think we're relaxed more to feel more rebellion and resistance against what's not working properly, and then a givingness. And this more is am. And people such more like this cause us to have strong electrics, because there was a resistance that person put up against the things which were not right, sort of thing, So a person could sort of just have fluffiness, perhaps. But, where somebody would go is why is it that in India, for instance, people really refer to someone who has this energy as Baba, for instance. Everywhere you go, people could say Baba. But that Baba really is a rebellion against everything that is conservative, that's not working really, and more about a givingness. And, and then in Africa and places like this, people that wander, they call this person Rasta, and in the native tradition they could call this person Tankashila, but it's sort of a force more that's a rebellion, against the things which is really not quite right, really, but then coupled with a givingness, and this sort of is equivalent to people testing more powerful and strong in their electrics, you see. But where you've got conservatism mixed with like a Christ-like energy or something, it can have contaminated that, and it can be not equivalent in the feelingness of sound and everything to cause a person to feel strong, but that people can have felt weak, electrically, because it's not equivalent to really any rebelledness against what's not really working, or a focus on what's really weak to correct it, and giving. But you can assist now. I think people should really be taking personal responsibility more for the genesis of peace, But in the native tradition, they can hear language, and, for instance, like they would have a prefix like loud, for instance, which means voice, and hawk, which means ability to see from afar, and that combined sort of is a way for a telepathicness more. A name like two dogs, for instance, you've got a pattern in two, and dog really means friendship. But then you've got a crow, deer, for instance, and crow's a symbol of the law, and deer really is about care, you see. So wolf means teacher, cloud is sort of formlessness, and formlessness is more equivalent to power, yeah. So, I think that being empathic and being able to be empathic is very important. and to clear away all of the learned helplessness that it can have been. But that eye awareness, having an eye-aware brain, yeah, you could say this. Yeah, having an eye-aware brain, Lukey. But this is beyond sort of causality, really. But because negatives are equivalent more powerfully, people would do all sorts of things to avoid. But that what's equivalent that they could gain as a result of a similar energy is negatives count ever more. And so where negatives can have been, people really have to have more intention. And this is medicine in the original native teaching or awakening, really, because it's a voice that you have inside rather than something being imparted from the outside. But learned helplessness really is sort of equivalent to the New World Order, really, in a way. And sort of falling in love with a child, sort of a relation, perhaps, of slave-servant. But it's a slave-servant sort of monkeyness, that could be seen. But New York City sort of spending all of its money, or being told to, in 2007, for instance, on lockdown, and 10,000 quality of life crimes having gone, uninvestigated, for instance, during that period of time, was a great sufferness, you see. But where you've got just one person in charge and people are not busy and working themselves, you've got a whole range of sort of an eugenic type of conditionedness on the outside. And then all of the other stuff, it's sort of a distractedness and bottom of the coffee's cage sort of talk, and just a distractedness, just like, the football and things like that. But a lot of these leaders, if you look, why is it okay that people are taking tranquilizers and all sorts of things like that? But there's a serious loss of spatial sort of ability and capacity sort of to work with anything complex. And you've got just simple sort of one brain wave sorts of things going on in that messaging, which is the typical sort of a bureaucratical or bureaucite energetic. But you've got an all-seeing eye, which really has a great deep wisdom that you're having inside yourself, and this doesn't match with that sort of one wave, brainwave stuff, So there has to be a learning, how to deal with all of this, to have an empathicness, But having interest and pleasure is what creates whole brain functioning, and the research that I did in the 80s and 90s at New York University confirms this. Yes. So this is all part of an eclipse as we move toward these dates, and an engine being built for us as you are getting a greater and greater audience with what we have in common inside that we share, which really is to do with constitutional money and the conversation about this. But there needs to be a breathing space, certainly, where things can be fortified and grown ever more, and that, you see. But people should tick the box, yes, they want reform in banking, that's it. But you can have a positive impact on people around you, that it's possible really to be applying more whole brain functioning principles and learning more about this, yeah. But you and I are all self as one, and I in I awareness as I am is your self company, really. But it just really change your brain and change the world, and this brain of I awareness. But a lot of other stuff is sort of a bit like a worthless title, just of a degree, that could have only confirmed a vague, understood essence of what this is inside you already. But you being educated rather than educated, being educated is you seeing self really inside everyone, and as one social sort of a condition of emptiness more, but which is not a form of total emptiness like at all, but of a position. But all a social position and title and degree is really just a matter not of any education, but a head-educatedness more. But we're talking a bit more about eye awareness, and this is something you have inside that's just natural, Yeah. But you've got certainly cities off the coast of Pakistan there in the water. You've got the city of Kembat, and you've got the story of Krishna, and you've got a story really of a person having to be deeply in eye awareness, and you've got elements of this which we're talking about, But the research, at NYU in neurology is a really breakthrough insight, which interest and pleasure really create whole brain patterning, and eye awareness really is respect in keeping self company, and inner self is eye welcoming company, who is allowing to be nobody, versus sort of trying to be somebody. But you've got a lot of trying to be somebody, which is Bollywood or Woollywood or Hollywood, but everybody has been trying to be somebody, you see, and aren't they comfortable just to be nobody? I think this is really allowing a nobodyness, inside you. But you have a great power inside yourself, and the world is really small in comparison. But that this is you awakening ever and awakened, but that you could be your mind asleep through the day. This is your inner spiritual energy having a potential biophotonic field, sort of that really is synchronization and a relaxedness of your shoulders and things. And this leads to a sublime more level of inner peace, learned. And being practiced in eye awareness, which is equal to having a union of your heart and your mind and brain, But eye awareness really is you respecting your inner company as self-worship more, to welcome company more in worshipping I am, which is dwelling inside you. So it's it's making yourself home inside, as I make mine in you, and you make mine in me. But that I'm making dwelling in how you are keeping self in company. And sinning really would have just been hurt, But yet eye-aware really is a virtue assisting keeping company, you see. Otherwise, jealousness, hate, and all of that could have been and things, you see. But happiness really is being experienced even now as not anyone else there, and your mind ever has. Which is inside you see, in your being. Eye-aware really is attained honestly, of honest action more being performed, and keeping company is pleased, you see. And inner confidence more now is a more fulfilled relation in our totality, But let's see, eye-awareness really is the language of peace. And this is framing things positively versus like two negatives to make a positive and all that sort of thing. But religion really is the submission to authority for the sake of certainty, and that could have been and often is a bit of a dogma, And the two areas, of course, we've been talking a little bit about is the original teachings can have been contaminated a lot by the ego, and then you've got a lot of gross distortion sort of going on, of the doctrine, and no attention to that, perhaps, So the speech that's happening there in the four basic media is just a bit of a combination of those two errors, really, And then I really is more speech which would really be to do with a path of least resistance to achieve economic stability, and taking a look at everything rather than just being obviously pieces of your speech and conversation just totally missing, like, for instance, teachings of sexuality, this sort of thing in an ashram, for instance, which there generally isn't any, Isn't love really more unconditional, and your unconditionalness, you're connecting, in your beingness, rather than a disconnectedness and a run-rabbitness sort of thing. But challenge really is more a focus on your outcome, and this is something which if an obstacle was, it's sort of something really easily overcome, versus a problem, which is more sort of like a focus on sin, shame, and guilt, as words, really, But a lot of stuff is sort of just an exploitation of triviality and indulgence, and it's the expense of an ignoredness, really, of a thrust more of eye awareness. But if one is living as without judgment, then let them have the first actions, you know what I mean, toward, like, Bradley Manning and this sort of thing. But if it's a phantom that's holding him there, well, and he's been joined to that somehow, well, where's his living being? Because he's certainly not a corporate, but he could have just been reduced to that, to be being joined that way, and that wouldn't be right, really, would it? But this, which we're talking about more, is you in your living beingness, equivalent, and there's not an organisation that's more powerful than an individual in your beingness, you see. But one without judgment is sort of like one without sin, casting the first stone, but nobody could. Because people sort of really all realise, well, that each person sort of had a bit of a judgment, and certainly the organisation itself that allowed 18 people to be killed, and I don't know what's happened to there, but it's sort of going on trial all the time, that Bradley is sort of not being released, and people making sense about it, But a beautiful lotus always rises from the roots, in the bottom of a pond of slime and mud. And you've really got to be able to discern truth, from falsehood. The truth is really this, which is mutually beneficial. And this is the age of Aquarius, and you've got, earth changes occurring, and you've got earthquakes in every city, major city and everything. And you've got your being really now being born ever more in the moment of birth of innocence in this age of Aquarius, free of negativity, and ever being filled more with joy, just arising of itself spontaneously, and you're just having spontaneous creative acts of joy in your being, and it just comes up rising from nothing. But this is love, and all else is sort of a bit of a distortedness and disease, really, and speech listened to, which is sort of a bit of misinformation and stuff, and all belief system things. But where you've seen two, one, can be coming back again, now once and for all time inside. But the software program really is this, being slipped inside now, and run, sort of it's I want to be hygienic, that's positive, and I don't want to be unhygienic is a way to have said the same thing, that being negative. But 78% of the world really, with that latter program sort of input really can have been in danger, and 15% of the world's sort of out of danger, and then you've got about maybe 7% sort of assisting and modelling excellence where you are, relaxedness of your shoulders and getting on with everything, and why not live life fully like this really is your beingness and your foreverness, and why not get going with everything. But if you're feeding your heart energy, this really is equivalent to love. Well, that's beautiful. This is I. Otherwise, other things are sort of negativity, isn't it? But we've really been talking about the prefrontal cortex and caring for your young. And this area of our brain has grown out of anatomy implicating interest. And so you're getting interest in things that sort of 33% of your brain would have been neurologically other than remain nicely, if there would have been aversion, as there can have been in the past, sort of stuff, But that sort of would have been a reptile, and then you could sort of see that going on in people around you, perhaps because they're not other than aware of what I is inside, as you are. But anyway, the prefrontal cortex, as we've been talking about in these programs, Lukey, I recommend people really tune into programs because each one really is unique of itself, isn't it? But everything really is building on everything else, until finally I is, and you've cleared away all of your story inside, But altruism really is generosity and reputation, which is the pattern of things, which that always you do need to care about and guard this, And then can you hear inside someone's speech and what they're going on a concern of egalitarianism, or is there areas they're really not sort of really focused on which they should be? But anyway, let's be in forgiveness, because only you can have a virtuousness to have discernment properly, because your prefrontal cortex area really is important in whole brain functioning, as the research shows. And then who else is actually talking that actually really is more neurobehavior, physiological in orientation, But I think that childhood relations with their caregivers really, isn't it just a bit like people listening to the president or Tavistock or Tavistock, travesty of the stock, and then your ability really to be able to hear whole brain patterning versus something that wasn't, in your being. But anyway, a part can have being built inside that from this day onward, you really have the ability to be able to hear this fineness, and maybe you just all of a sudden just only listening to 432 sort of and life music, and you just kind of completely just all of a sudden just stop, listening to all that 440 stuff, and you just get rid of it. But why not just empty out things and make space before things to flow in? Because that's sort of really what we should really be doing, But anyway, childhood relations with their caregivers, we've been talking a bit about this, and helplessness, where people sort of just lost interest necessarily, and they suffered with abandonment and all sorts of things, and that a lot of people are sort of influenced by that. But this finding refuge more in I is sort of your relaxedness in your actions coming out of a socialization, really, and it's a social expectation more, an attitude of energy and motion, which is a habit more of just emptiness rather than trying to be secure, and then being insecure, right, because the outside world really isn't that way, really, and then but inside you really can find this. But the habit of insecurity is really equivalent to a lack of integratedness between the frontal cortex and the brainstem. We've been talking a bit about this. But you're finding refuge more inside as I, this is your sort of software program. If I'm backtracking through the programs that we've had, the last few programs, I think this is what we've sort of really been talking about, Lukey, really. But, flexibility and having a great flexibility more in the field is more a leaderless revolution happening, really. And I think that everybody's sort of witnessing this, that there's a great movement more toward news, which is more truthful, I'd say, more focusing on what is actually really beneficial and not controlled, right, or not owned. Yeah, so reality, I think, is really what people are tuning into. That's why people like Alex Jones, I guess, is really woofing it all. People are taking it up in the internet, their phones and everything. But neurological diversity and flexibility is equivalent to whole brain functioning. And then we've really been talking about these three parts of your attention. And one we've really been talking a bit about, and we've got three which we go over just right now if you're interested, to backtrack just a bit. I think we go so fast, don't we? But slowing it down just a little. Is it interesting to focus on attention? Because most people's attention could have been a bit scattered, and people are living in a bit of fear that they actually do have a bit of attention deficit disorder because they're running around a lot. But the three parts of attention really is how much one can retain and hold on to, track where they are with things, right? And, and then that's one part of everything. And then the other part is really a growingness, right, where you are and continuously checking in and growing things. Otherwise, it sort of creates a looping in yourself and not an integratedness. So that second part is sort of a growthness continuously where you are and what ability do you have in your paying attention to have this part of yourself there. And then a thoughtness of attractiveness, fluffy magnet-wiseness, brightness of your mind and accelerated of loveness in your and you're reaching out and a connectedness of your a hand even, and your feelingness, connectedness in yourself and your beingness. And if you've got this, then you've got 78% of the metrics to pass on neurologically, everything, and you've got deliberate intention more. Are you there, Lukey? If we keep going with everything, your future pacing and you're sorting things out by seeing things in the future, and this is drawing you forward, and you've got a body-centered teacher in your beingness, and you have a continued re-establishedness in your intention, and you have something that's going on where you've got a default mechanism, to say, wait a minute, I wonder if I've got this. But then well-formedness really is positive, ecological, sensory-based, and you've got to have something, as we're talking about, knows if you've got this or not, if you've achieved it. And so is this there in the statement, or is it just sort of a lot of nominalizing, unspecifiedness, missing referential index, and just hypnosis? And then, but this which we're talking right now is you having the skills to be able to be dehypnotized and be able to easily dehypnotize. Yeah. But otherwise, sort of a lot of error it can have been going on in the programming where a person could have thought, eyes are equivalent to your behaviour, which it isn't. You know what I mean? No. Yeah. But heaven really is between two children playing, and this is two children. Cloud two children, and this is the ceremonial chief. Yeah, well, that's really something. But anyway, this is a state of I inside, really more. So we're getting closer to where we've been talking a bit about. I think we got up to the mind being more asleep as valuableness because people have a lot of stress and thinking and stuff, and that sort of thing, and it's just sort of time now just to have switched off and like you're watching a cooking show or something, Yeah. People love mindlessness. Mindlessness is really equivalent to peace, Lukey, yeah. But the three deep insights of whole brain functioning and eye awareness really is, the world really. First, you would think that, the papers and all of that sort of stuff is the world sort of appeared as a melodrama, and that person could have really looked out and sort of, oh God, the world feels really large, woo woo woo. And you felt really sort of small inside, but that's not true, It's sort of, you've got to have a lamb and a line in there as we're connecting, but that idea of the world all being huge and you being left small is just totally false, The opposite more is true, but that you really being more powerful inside yourself as I, and this really is real, because this is formlessness as a cloud, has power. Otherwise, sort of all the form sort of is powerless, But thinking and all that chatter is, being real is sort of disappeared. Yes. Anyway, normalness really, normal experience happening now once and for all time, is your originalness and this sort of your relaxedness and playfulness. And this is merely you being in an altered state, and this is you being dehypnotized, you see. And joy just arising simply from your no-actedness and being, And no action really needed, you see. Yeah. But property and all of that sort of stuff can have just been holding people back, isolated, fortified, and lonely, but not talking about really this deep what I'm talking about, But people do need technical teaching and technical teachers, but this is more a modelling of excellence inside you and growing this voice more you have inside yourself here. But aversive programming out there neurologically would have inhibited the frontal cortex, And then my whole brain functioning research, at NYU in the 80s and 90s really is a lot about this. It really came from totally looking at Robert Heath's work at Tulane University in New Orleans in the late 70s. But in brain function, you see, and that the septal region of the brain, as this is firing, it is neurologically inhibiting the amygdala and tegmentum, and you're feeling just a happy day, you know what I mean? And you're waking up in the morning and actually all of a sudden you're no longer a rabbit, gone. Like, wow. I mean, you're harvesting energy for yourself. It's like, whoa, well, that's amazing, you know what I mean? So this is sort of like a leaderless revolution, and this is sort of really amazing. It's sort of about learning how to be, again, nobody. It's okay to be nobody, rather than sort of like having to have the prince around all the time and just sort of like getting a handout, you know what I mean? Which is not good, but 2 cups always where you were and as you are, it really is this, you know what I mean? And this is functioning, and you're really helping actually as you, you're remembering this and you're getting underway with everything, and you're connecting in, all right? And you've got to do it, more like this, yeah. But anyway, this is really existing sort of. It doesn't mean it's normal. No, not really at all. If 78% of the world really needs to be saved, actually, sort of being disturbed, a child really believing innocently, anything they're told them, that's the reason why it's really, really sinful. People are talking just cocky cage stuff, turning the mind on and off with their thinking, not good. But anyway, programming in place now, really more for truth, really is what's beneficial, and if something is more beneficial than this is truth, isn't it? Okay, well then, got to do this. This is really you and me being more eye-aware, Lukey, all right? I think that's the way to go, mate. You know what I mean? But I think we're backtracking. We're just really being able to go forward more with these technical teaching and awakening, really, in eye awareness, and talking more about learned helplessness, because we've got to clear that up, and you've got to, erect a fence and some signs, at the top of the cliff, and stop all the cocky cage stuff, which is maybe important because, you've got to have ambulances to take people away if stuff's not working. But something else we should really be going on with. It's all right, tune into what we've been going on about here, and you're going to be learning, you know what I mean? But if you can't really remember what we've talked about, that's good, because it's just sort of really going on inside, because it's really something that's making sense, yeah. But it's really awakening more to your totality. You and I have enough element inside. Am really is the body, and you've got enough serotonin and things, and you're happy, yeah. And then you and I have this realised beingness in our truth and things, and happiness and integratedness, and then you're sort of gone beyond being a bit of a foodie, in your food body consciousness and food this, food that, food this, food that, sort of just like the betting at the races, or continuously, having something in front of your face, like your hands looking at your fingernails or something. But integrated eating is like food, and having a bit more behavioural balance is whole brain functioning. Or, there's just a total uncontrolledness, or sort of feeling like impending doom or something, and that's a bit silly, But anyway, people sort of in their beingness is all sort of other than relaxed and uncontrolled sorts of just bursts, and other than integratedness, it's just the 10,000 things of a non-reasonableness and addiction, behavioural non-stopness, twitching, itching, wishing, what's equivalent to itching? I don't know, wishing, thinking, yeah, and an old reptile brain having been present, perfectly, it's got an instinct, and energy and motion sort of could have been surface changed, and all that Plato stuff and United Nations sort of wacky sort of stuff, social engineeredness in the papers, you could see it, first, second page, all sort of propaganda, biological defective sort of stuff, because it doesn't really talk about the animals and the crickets, Something's missing, sort of heady, yeah. Anyway, that's okay, could be, maybe not, but anyway, that's something else. Systematically downgraded sort of intelligence, Lukey, not good, because that's an easy way to have caused people's brains not to be functioning fully in whole brain functioning. But how can you trick somebody, and try to go back once you know this? Okay. Try. You try to go back. It's just typical. You can't go back. It's like, can't do it. That's what people report. But anyway, I've just sort of really had observational clinic evidence. This is just takes all the subjective reasoning out of it fully. So no need to guess anymore, you know what I mean? And accurate program data, 78% of the time, how's that? Well, then the message is going to be passed on. And this is the reason why people do test powerful for leaders who have a bit of a rebel in there. You do, and I do, you see. Yeah. So, we like that, you see. So people test powerful, and they will participate day in, day out, because you've got a motivation inside, an internal generator going on, you see. Yeah. But leaders that make you feel strong, electrically or weak, and well, what's up with that? You know what I mean? Yeah. But instant determination of how you're feeling and feel inside eye-awareness really is transcending and not just something that could be cut up or dissected, because this is an energy that's very powerfully transcending one as two, and as two, you're powerfully acting upon everything, you know. No space between, right? Yeah. But otherwise, it's just sort of a cold teaching beautifully right now, more of being a focus of merit fully all the time. So, and what is of merit, and wrapping a framework all the time. So, and what is of merit, and wrapping a framework all the time. So, and what is of merit, and wrapping a framework all the time.